Good morning. We'll call the meeting of the Cannabis Compliance Board to order. And for those in the audience, we thank you for your patience. A little technical difficulty this morning, but I guess we're in contact with all the ends of the state again. So with that, if we can have a quorum call.
Great. Member Merritt.
Present.
Member Durrett.
Present.
Member Nylander.
Present.
Dr. Young.
Present.
And Justice Douglas.
Present. With that, we'll go into our public comment section. And if we have any members of the public who wish to make comment, if they'll please come forward, state their name and their business, please.
Good morning, Scott Rutledge with Argentum Partners for the record. I'm coming to you today on behalf of my client, Green Life Productions. In October of 2021, CCB inspectors visited the GLP cultivation site in Pahrump, Nevada, began the process of investigating GLP's growing methodology. Investigation is still ongoing, and after hundreds of hours of time and effort billing and numerous communications between the parties, we are hopefully close to reaching the conclusion with an approved final plan of correction. I've been honored to work with Steve and Quanine, the owners of Green Life Productions, and their appliance consultant, Sheba Statham. I'm impressed with the professionalism by which they have conducted themselves and have learned a great deal about what might be the most environmentally sustainable indoor cannabis cultivation facility in North America. Steve and Quanine are passionate about their farming methodology, and I believe should be praised by this board and this industry for their leadership in creating a more sustainable cannabis product. We plan to present a petition based on findings that have arisen during this process, where both we and the CCB staff have agreed that new definitions and further clarification in the regulations are needed. We appreciate the hard work put in by Chief Cronkite and her team, and recognize that the methodology used at GLP's cannabis cultivation is one that requires strong evidence of scientific data and comports with not only Nevada's regulations, but aligns with federal regulations as well. It's our belief that GLP's standards and processes are beyond reproach, as is evidenced by their nearly flawless pass rate in testing and the high demand for their products in the Nevada cannabis marketplace. To the issue of time and effort, of which there have been several bills delivered since November of 2021, and which my client has paid on time and in good faith. We are challenged by the lack of specificity and detail provided in these bills. In a consultation with Chief Cronkite and Deputy AG Balducci on July 12th, we were promised that detailed logs would be provided in a reasonable time frame. It's been 42 days since that request was made, and we still have not received those logs. GLP continues to receive time and effort bills from the CCB. We're requesting that those logs be provided prior to another bill being sent, as we are concerned there may be erroneous billing for staff research and education on methodologies in botanical and agricultural science that we believe should not be charged to a licensee. We plan to meet with Chief Cronkite and again to review these logs once we've had a chance to review them. I want to thank you for the time this morning, and also again thank the staff for their hard work and dedication on behalf of the state. And I'll submit my comments with the time and effort billing.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Will Adler, and I am the director of the Sierra Cannabis Coalition. The Sierra Cannabis Coalition is a coalition of cannabis operators in the state of Nevada, solely focused on the economic issues that are burdening the cannabis licenses in the state. I would like to thank Scott Rutledge for his previous comments, because his comments are everyone's comments when it comes to time and effort bills. There's been a lack of clarity around the subject since the beginning of the year, where these bills come out en masse in large sums with a single line saying time and effort, 20 hours, here's your bill. So that is a concern of ours, but a positive update was the July 29th announcement around time and effort, where the CCB did identify that they would be charging half time for transportation and no time and effort for digital communications. I think that's a step in the right direction, but we need to keep stepping in that direction, or even further, assessing the time and effort, with some more scrutiny. And then I would also like to ask and check in on the RFP around doing a statewide economic study. I know that went out in July, and we maybe have somebody directing that or not. And in that, I would also ask that the board direct staff or in some way asked for a statewide, economic survey just to go out amongst the license holders. We did a very good survey when it came to, racial awareness and what is the ratios of hired populations within the cannabis industry. I would like to also see a survey go out to ask about the license health and what people are feeling this year and kind of how it's going. Because time and effort bills, I do feel if we're asked, would be asked to be part of the economic stress of this year, as well as with our fair market value at wholesale. Thank you again for addressing these issues, and thank you for your time today. Have a good
Thank
day.
you. Additional public comment. Good morning.
This is probably, good morning. I'm Rachel Lee. My company is a CBD company, Sunflower Compassionate Company. This probably be my maybe 6th or 7th time coming to one of these meetings and standing before the board. And prior to that, I was young in the mind, didn't know how to pay my respects, so respects to all of you. Merritt, Barrett, Douglas, Climas, I believe Nylander, and there's a Young. Anyhow, let me get to the point of why I'm standing here before you. And I am going to try to read this as fast as I can, but these are issues that are really important to me. The first one of the issues is that I am not agreeing with buying from the dispensaries as a consumption lounge applicant. If I'm buying from the dispensaries, that makes me a customer. Furthermore, for growers that have an option or opportunity to be able to receive money from the cannabis consumption lounge as well. What does that put already in set place cultivation companies that have been in place for a long time, and now they're not able to benefit off of money from people that are holding licenses? And how does that set them as far as going out of business based on the fact that if you're issuing cultivation license to dispensaries, that kind of put some of the growers, especially clean growers, for people that are interested in clean grow, like Fleur. Shout out to them for reaching out and being able to help people in the CEIC community. But what about people like Fleur, who will pretty much go under because they are a clean grow and they're not able to receive anybody purchasing from them from a dispensary because then they're cut out as the middleman. Um, I'm going to say this, but the casinos will not like me after this, but it's cool because I really don't like them either. A law has been set in place for cannabis to not be allowed in their establishments. And I feel like that's fine, keep that same energy. Even though the same gamblers that flood your casinos could possibly have a medicinal need for cannabis consumption, but you won't allow the medicinal necessities, but you will allow their gambling dollars. Keep it that way. Most of my friends don't gamble or drink anyway. And I'm going to ask the CCB, please do not let the casinos or dispensaries rule what should be law. I beg of you, please stick to the knowledge and education of it. And as you push closer to continuous information research and success of the cannabis program, do not allow the pockets of those who are not already currently putting something in my community, like the West Side, determine which should be done for people who actually need medicinal use. If my mother wanted to stay inside of a hotel, and yet my mother sits over there with Alzheimer's disease of 9 years, thank God to CBD and cannabis. If she wanted to go inside of a casino, thank God she doesn't gamble, but if she wanted to, she's not able to be able to stay inside that casino and use cannabis. But that's fine. On August 31st, I sat in the first CCB meeting, well, one of the meetings, and I was at awe by seeing someone standing up for some social equity and inclusion for the community. My words was exactly this: you can give it to them, but what are they going to do with it? My community, the West Side, and all the surrounding areas where my family was secluded from other areas in Nevada, and where other areas were and still is affected by the war on drugs. The most expensive building over there on the West Side is a $49 million federal building. The schools you walk into are not safe. I can leave out this building, get in my car, walk into the school, and go and do whatever I please. Yet other communities that are being built with money from the dollars that are received by people that are affected on the war on drugs, yet we build around everything but the community that need it the most. People that are arrested by the quote unquote war on drugs like myself. This very own building, like I said before, was standing in a champion of civil rights, as your sign says as you enter the elevator, Mr. Grant Sawyer. for, sorry, for all the streets names of the West Side, but yet my goddaughter is not safe in her own community. And I think that's just about all I wanted to say. Thank you for letting me share. If I can think about anything else, may stick around. If I don't stick around, please respect the fact that I have to take my mother back to her home. Thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment.
Good morning. My name is Christina Ullman. I am the co-founder and president of the Chamber of Cannabis, Nevada's largest business trade organization. I come before you today representing 400 industry professionals, 70 cannabis businesses, and numerous activists building the market to what it is today. As we finalize consumption venue regulations and create new commerce and social norms for adults living and visiting in Nevada, we want to thank you for your transparent and collaborative process in how the regulations have been workshopped and decided on. Excuse me. The development of the privileged licenses serve as an example for how activists, professionals, businesses, regulators, and political leaders can work together to accomplish a complex goal like this. We hope that the seamless success of the process of, we hope that after seeing the success of this process, it can be emulated throughout the sectors of the industry so that the experts and the regulators are working together to create a more viable and sustainable market, because right now that isn't the case. As revenues continue to decline and flower becomes more and more abundant, the regulations that are created now will not only impact the market of today, but it will impact the market of tomorrow. We respectfully ask the board to consider creating more subcommittees with industry experts that can serve as guides and share their knowledge and solutions as we try to create and operate a safe and thriving cannabis space. The professionals building the industry want to be equipped with the resources that we need to do the job well and compliantly. We shouldn't be scared to ask a question to the CCB in fear of being penalized or the regulators rushing down to issue a fine, but instead should be a resource for people who are trying to follow the rules and do it well. We cannot continue on this path as we are and expect the market and morale to shift to more positive results. Although the CCB is not responsible for the success of cannabis businesses in Nevada, the board's regulations will directly impact the economic development of the market. We hope that you take these suggestions and many others that we have offered today into consideration so that we truly may be the gold standard state. Thank you.
Additional comments.
Good morning. First, my name is Nicole Bafong. I am the Western Regional Director for Minorities for Medical Marijuana, and I also sit on the Board of Directors for the Chamber of Cannabis. I would like to thank Executive Director Tyler Klimas for being a part of our virtual town hall that happened about a week ago. We had over 75 people from all over the country join our 2-hour online event where Mr. Klimas informed our audience about the regulations for independent consumption lounge licensees. And M4MM New State Co-Director Judith Zalika did a presentation on what those potential licensees will need to become more operational in Nevada. The information was well received and the community is looking forward to the educational series that the CCB will host before applications are opened. I appreciate the CCB for the transparent and easy process that you have provided so far to our cannabis industry in matters of regulation. When I saw my recommendation to include specific wraps in regulations at consumption lounges, I knew that you listened to my comments as you determined the final regulations for the consumption lounge licenses. 2 points I'd like to make today. I want to thank the CCB again for adding the newest mandate that requires cultivators to label their radiated flower. Nevada has some of the strictest consumer and patient protections in the country. This mandate is another way of creating the gold standard for consumers and patients. But if we had standardized testing, then the radiation issue would have been known by the consumer at this point. I highly recommend that the next matter you consider should be standardized testing for all laboratories in the state. There is standardized testing for most everything else we consume. Cannabis should be no different. My second point As a patients' rights advocate, I was disappointed to learn that the CCB has decided to challenge the growing process of one of the premium brands in the state, Green Life Productions. GLP's unique craft of growing clean, quality flower by creating their own compost and no-till soil process results in some of the best product on the market. It is a style of growing that all cultivators should aspire to learn and adopt for their own harvest. Cannabis companies like GLP set the bar for high quality products and how companies can positively impact their community. When they launched Green Life Produce earlier this year, they really showed us how a cannabis company can go beyond just growing really good cannabis to becoming the leaders of fresh organic produce within their communities. I recommend that you create a cannabis advisory committee that uses advisors that actually consume and touch the plant daily, maybe a patient and consumer committee that also includes advisors that are a part of the cultivation and production manufacturing community. I would like to go on record to volunteer my services to be a part of this advisory committee. Thank you for your time today, and I really appreciate all the work that you're doing.
Thank you. Additional comment.
Everybody's so excited to talk to you guys. Good morning, esteemed board members, Director Clemis and Chair Douglas. For the record, my name is Brianna Padilla, and I serve as the Secretary for the Chamber of Cannabis. First off, I would like to begin by thanking the CCB and its staff for their tireless work throughout the processes of promulgation and the finalization of these consumption venue regulations. While many of those who were close to this process are waiting on bated breath for the next steps, unfortunately, it doesn't seem like everybody else in the county or the state is on the same page. Last week, for example, Clark County Commissioners tabled discussions about consumption venues in order to review a presentation that noted items of concern that had been previously discussed and laid to rest during the extensive workshop process executed here. Some of those questions to be discussed that caught my eye included whether or not to allow entertainment like comedy shows, painting classes, weddings, whether to allow outdoor consumption in conjunction with odor mitigation, and additional limitations on the number of locations allowed. Consumption venue locations. As we know, and as has been highlighted through this process, new cannabis licensees and even current licensees must contend with onerous and hefty costs related to working in a privileged license space. The types of constraints being mentioned in the Clark County Business License Department's presentation have the potential to cut these new businesses down before they even had a chance to fully get off the ground. This is especially true for the independent and social equity licensees that are coming in without an established brand identity or customer base. I hope these concerns can be eased through the sharing of knowledge and a continued dialogue with all stakeholders so that we can allow these new businesses as many opportunities to succeed while remaining safe, compliant, and responsible. None of us are in this alone, and I encourage the CCB to remember that our industry leaders and chamber members are here with the knowledge and the drive to get it right, that we need to continue on work on building this together, whether that is through the work in existing committees or establishing new advisory committees to help share the load, as we know that the work does not end beyond these meetings. We are here to help move the industry together forward. As always, thank you for your time. I look forward to continuing this work and this dialogue.
Thank you. Additional comment.
Good morning, board chair, executive director. My name is Amber Jansen, and I'm here as a patient. Sorry, I get nervous in front of all these people. What I want to talk to you about is the labeling of the radiation decontamination. I feel that it's very important that customers know about this. And the biggest reason is because I'm a patient and I use clean cannabis. And right now I understand that clean cannabis is kind of being attacked in our industry, which I don't understand. Because what clean cannabis is they're growing by organic standards, right? While they can't use that term in the state because it's federally regulated, they do have certifications that they're upheld to, right? So these companies like GLP, who is the standard for growing in this state, we have the compliance board in there checking on them about using companion plants and beneficial bugs in soil. They're mimicking nature. They're using the soil food web. So I don't understand why they would be your focus when you have growers using chemicals, right? So, and now we want to worry about decontamination, which is, we should be worried about it because as a patient, you want to use a clean product. You know, the best way for a patient would be to juice a cannabis leaf. They get the most benefits and not even get high, but that's not even a possibility here. And if it was, I would only want to get it from Green Life or Fleur, someone who's not tainting it with chemicals, but they're being smart and they are putting it back into their grow, which I hear has been an issue too. It doesn't make sense. They're reducing their carbon footprint, and the state's worried about them doing that. If you took the pass-fail rates from GLP, Fleur, maybe Fused, even Metazine, and compare it to some of these other grows, doesn't it show you that you can grow without using remediation and decontamination? They're doing it God's way. They're doing it naturally, unfortunately, indoors, but that's how they're doing it, and it's keeping it clean. So I think our bigger issue is the standards we have in our community for growing. The industry needs to establish new quality standards for product purity and employ new growing practices to meet them. Advanced technologies can help create near perfect growing ecosystems and microclimates for cannabis and keep them free of mold. So by doing remediation and contamination, that's growers that know that they're failing. So they're using this to, it's like a Band-Aid, right? Cannabis helps cure, pharmaceuticals just help cover the pain. So why not start from the beginning and put in better growing practices instead of worrying about decontaminating moldy weed? Thank you.
Additional comment.
My name is Gerardo Gonzalez. I'm just a consumer, a stoner, and represent the working class of the industry. So mostly I'd say the green collar. But the reason I got into this was when I was 14, 15, I had a brother. When HIV and AIDS were big, a lot of his friends told me what the benefits were, and it was clean weed. And unfortunately now the CCB and the state look at clean weed as something bad just because it's not understandable. You guys are very transparent on using the RAD machines and understanding what they are, and those studies from there as the agriculture department came in, but there's no studies on what combustion can do when smoking radiated weed. Radiation alters your DNA, alters your cells. So there should be more study before we say that's going to be the new industry standard. There's also an oxygen machine that's coming into play. These machines are in Champs trade shows, which is like a lifestyle alternative, and they're being sold. We go to CannaCon and these radiation machines are being sold. So that instead of being clean green cannabis like GOP, like Fleur, the new industry standard should be using radiation machines, not flushing a flower properly. And unfortunately, even though we lose every day more and more medical patients to this recreational thing just because of profits. The state now only has about 9,000 patients, 10,000 patients, which is a shame because we got here because of them. And the fact that not you guys, but CCB just finds that instead of being clean grows, we should use ways to cut that. And that's not right for the patients nor the consumers who don't know about it. So I do give you credit for trying to label organic, non-organic, but I think there should be more education. And, there's some people out here that believe me, and thank you for GOP for still doing what they do, even though a lot of eyes are on them. But I think it's awesome because they're highlighted, not just for us, but on the Twitter spaces, on everything for being clean. So their grow is going to go nationwide. And in a state where kids don't know how to grow vegetables, we don't have vegetables, we don't have anything, they come from behind and show people we can grow clean produce, not just a cannabis company, but now we help people eat healthy, beautiful vegetables, organic, and that should be actually a course that should be studied in a school on how to grow, especially in a state where our education is at the minimum. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Additional public comment in Las Vegas. Seeing none at this time, we move to Carson City. Do we have any public comment in Carson City? It appears that it's a quiet day in Carson City. Oh. Go
I'll be
ahead,
loud
sir.
enough for all of the Northern Nevada folks. My name is Christine Gomez. I am a local operator of a dispensary up here. I am also on the board of directors for the Chamber of Cannabis as well. I want to start by saying thank you for all the opportunity that we've had to create a transparent and collaborative process in creating regulations for the lounges. It has given us industry professionals a glimpse into building the bridge and the gap in between the regulators and the workers. The development of the subcommittees for lounges has allowed both industry and general public insight into addressing concerns, transparency, and more. The social equity programming has been so encouraging, and as a longtime agent, I can say that we've always seen an environment that you either need to be incredibly wealthy or you need to have a load of investors standing behind you. The programming that we have placed has allowed us to see that the average folk too can get involved. However, the level of fines coming out of these complaints is not something that social equity applicants are able to handle. If we've considered lowering these fees and applicant fees for getting involved, we should also consider how much we're fining when there are infractions that can be improved. The crippling fees are going to just immediately scare all of the local industry, the local mom and pops, if you will, out of getting involved in the first place. A couple of suggestions that my peers and I have come up with in regards to creating a better environment would be having some form of a hotline or a tip line where we could ask in fear of being reprimanded for the hunt, if you will. We do need some form of remediation programming and training versus just declaring how we plan on changing our deficiencies. We need guidance. The guidance that has been provided for lounges is more than we've seen in any other sector in this industry. If we could get subcommittees in place for all these other areas, the cultivation side, production and manufacturing, the distribution side, I think that would overall benefit each area of this. I do look forward in partnering further with you guys in collaboration. I thank you for your guys' time and hearing us out. And again, have a good rest of your day.
Thank you.
Any additional voices? Carson City.
Doesn't appear to be additional public comment here.
Thank you. With that being said, we will then move to item 2 on our agenda, which is meeting minutes from the July 26, 2022 meeting. If they've been reviewed, if we can get a motion as to their acceptance and any corrections necessary.
Member Merritt, I move that we approve the minutes.
We have a motion for approval of the July 26, 2022 minutes. Do we have a second?
This is Member Young. I'll second that.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Any additional discussion or corrections? Hearing none, all in favor of the acceptance and the approval of the July 26, 2022 minutes, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Matter carries unanimously. That moves us to item number 3, consideration of proposed settlement agreements to resolve disciplinary actions. Turn to our Deputy Attorney General.
Thank you. Good morning, Chair, members of the board. L. Christopher Rath, Senior Deputy Attorney General. I will be presenting all 4 of the settlement agreements that are up for consideration today. Starting with agenda item 3A, we have the case of the CCB versus Nevada Organic Remedies, LLC, license number RD219, CCB case number 2022-68. This proposed settlement agreement, if approved, would resolve both the connected disciplinary complaint and one issue for which the investigation concluded after the complaint was filed. First, the complaint was filed and served on June 6, 2022 against respondent, an adult use cannabis retail store. Respondent has not filed an answer at this point. Rather, as an agreement in principle was reached for resolution subject to your approval, the disciplinary process was stayed to allow an agreement to be prepared and for the board's consideration. The allegations in the complaint include unintentionally concealing evidence, failure to properly document a cannabis sales transaction, selling an amount of cannabis in excess of transaction limits, failing to follow seed-to-sale tracking requirements, and failure of the licensee to follow its own policies and procedures for cannabis sales. In addition to the allegations in the complaint, on July 15, CCB staff completed its investigation of the licensee's self-report of the sale of cannabis to an underage person. Respondent and the Attorney General's office entered into settlement negotiations to resolve both the complaint and the underage sale, and came to an agreement to resolve both issues to the satisfaction of respondent CCB staff, and the Attorney General's office, subject to your approval. As to the underage sale, respondent agreed to waive the filing and service of a complaint so that that issue could also be expeditiously resolved. As set forth in the proposed settlement agreement to resolve these matters, respondent admitted to one Category 2 violation for making an unintentionally false statement or representation of fact to the board or board agents. As noted in the settlement agreement, this would be the second Category 2 violation within 2 years, as there was one imposed prior regarding an unauthorized TOI in January 2021, and that was when the license was under a different ownership and management. Also, respondent admitted to one Category 3 violation for failing to keep required records, including seed to sale tracking requirements. Respondent also admitted to a second Category 3 violation for failing to notify the board of a serious incident in the required time. And lastly, respondent admitted to a third Category 3 violation for allowing activity which violates the laws of the state. I would note that this was the only violation attributed to the self-reported underage sale. As it was self-reported, this violation was dropped from what should have been a Category 2 violation to a Category 3 violation. And the civil penalty for that third Category 3 violation was cut in half from what it should have been. So all that was taken into account for the self-reported issue. In addition, respondent also agreed to pay civil penalties in the total amount of $145,000 within 30 days of the date the CCB approves this agreement, if there is board approval. Respondent also provided a plan of correction, which is summarized in paragraph 18 of the settlement agreement. The CCB staff has approved this plan. In summary, the plan of correction for the complaint issues includes the following. Respondents, employees, and managers received warnings and training on proper procedures for cannabis sales and documenting those sales appropriately. Second, the point of sale software has been updated to prevent sales exceeding maximum amounts. And third, respondent has implemented a better incident reporting system to more timely report serious incidents to the CCB. For the underage sale issue, in summary, the plan of correction includes first, the respondent terminated the employees involved in the underage sale. Respondent communicated with its vendor for ID scanning to implement an alert system which prevents employees from ignoring an underage sale alert. And third, employees are now required to enter a customer's date of birth into the point of sale system before a sale can be completed. Based on this, the Attorney General recommends and requests the CCB approve the settlement agreement. I'm available for any questions, as is counsel for the respondent, Ms. Ashcraft.
Thank you. We'll hold the questions at this time. We'll hear from our respondents and counsel.
Good morning. Thank you, Chair Douglas, members of the board, Director Klimas. For the record, Alicia Ashcraft of the law firm of Armstrong Teasdale. On behalf of the respondent, with me at the podium this morning is CEO Steve Haffer and compliance counsel Amanda Connor of law firm of Connor & Connor. We do appreciate and thank Mr. Rath for his professionalism and assistance in resolving these disciplinary actions in an amicable manner. We're happy to answer any questions that you have and respectfully request approval of the stipulated settlement.
Thank you. Questions by board members of either respondents or state counsel?
I have a question. What is the specific amount that is related to the underage sale?
That would be $45,000. The normal third Category 3 would be $90,000. So we cut that in half to $45,000. And I think, as you recall, that was the same penalty you had recommended for exactly the same issue for another licensee. So I also took that into consideration.
Other questions by board members? If we have no additional questions, do we have a motion?
Sorry, I have a comment. I was waiting for comment period, no question period. But I think with the self-reported that we need to have an environment where the industry can call and say, we just caught this, we're changing this, and let's all work together and move on. So I would not support a $45,000 fine for a one-time incident that is then corrected. So I would support it if this amount minus the $45,000. I have a feeling I'm on my own on that, so I won't make the motion and just want to make that known. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. We have any other comments any board member wishes to make? For the record, Chair Douglas, I do support the settlement that's been put to us today. Is it harsh? Probably so. One of the difficulties for us is to regulate the industry, to let the industry know, and it seems the industry still doesn't know because we still get some of these things popping up on a regular basis. I realize it's not necessarily the ownership, some is individuals who are working for them, and they are unfortunately stuck with that, good and bad. But that's part of the nature of the business. So we would hope for better supervision and education of the employees in the industry. It's a harsh burden, but it goes with the benefits that the individuals who are in the industry accept for doing what they do. A county commissioner said that the role of the regulator is not really to issue fines and make money off of fines, but is either to grant or deny a license or to terminate a license. I hope we don't get into the termination of license business. I would like to see us getting less fines. But again, we are a growing and an engaging industry. As some of the public comment indicated, we are learning, we are growing. And the growth is not just the people who are in the industry, but it's the regulators as well, the day-to-day staff that goes out. And I'll make additional comment later on that state, but unfortunately, that's my position. But I speak only for me. I don't speak for the other board members. Comment. So the question is whether or not any other board member wishes to make a comment. And if not, if we have a motion, one way or the other.
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. Yeah, I agree with your comments. You know, the industry's growing. We as regulators are growing. You know, we're still in our infancy compared to other industries. So, you know, I think we got to continue to try to balance these things. But in the matter in front of us today, these violations occurred and there were multiple violations. One was self-reported, which I do appreciate, and we should, you know, reward licensees for that conduct. But the fact is that these violations all occurred, and there's not a dispute as to that. So if you're prepared, Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion on this matter.
Member Merritt, and I will also second it.
If we can have I take it, you would make a motion for acceptance of the settlement of the disciplinary action?
Yeah, that it would be my motion, yeah, to approve the settlement to resolve the matter in item 3A, CCB versus Nevada Organic Remedies.
Thank you. We have a motion. We have a second. Any additional discussion? And we note member Durrett's comments, and if she wishes to make any additional.
Thank you, Chair. Thanks. I just I think that these violations like this will always occur, and if you're looking at gaming, if I Member Nylander can correct me at any time when I reference gaming, but if there's an investigation of a top casino bringing in billions of dollars to the state, there's still going to be violations. There are always going to be violations. You're always going to find something. So but if we want a healthy industry, I think we need to nurture it. We need to work with them. We need to welcome self-reporting and understand that some of the violations are more serious than others, like trafficking. Selling to a minor is serious, but that's going to happen once in a while, and we need to welcome self-reporting. And the other thing I'd say about that is in gaming, they make a lot more money, and so I think eventually we are going to look at. I know the chair is welcomed a discussion in the future on fines. Look at how much is this fine impacting the business. I don't know that. I want more information on that. So thank you, Chair, for letting me respond. So on because of the self-reporting, I will be a no. I think these other violations were serious. And so I don't want to be a no on the settlement agreement, but because of the self-reported, for myself, I want to welcome self-reporting.
Thank you. With that having been said, all in favor of the motion, please say aye.
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 Opposed?
No.
Member Durrett for the record with a no. Any abstentions? Matter carries. Thank you very much. You might as well stay because we have this second part.
We'll switch. We'll switch.
That moves us to item B.
Thank you, Chair. Under Agenda Item B, we have the case of CCB versus Nevada Organic Remedies LLC, but this time it's as to license RD 217, and that's CCB case 2022-107. This matter arises from an investigation conducted in late 2021. At that time, CCB investigators found that respondent had failed to accept cannabis it had received into its metric inventory within the required 24 hours. Not only that, the cannabis still remained outside metric almost a month later, so the metric inventory remained incorrect during that time. The initial plan was to proceed with a disciplinary complaint on this matter. However, as I was already engaged in negotiations with the licensee's counsel on the prior matter, we were also able to negotiate a proposed resolution for this separate license. Therefore, the respondent waived the service and filing of the complaint and agreed to resolve the matter on the terms set forth in the settlement agreement. As set forth in the proposed settlement agreement, to resolve the matter, respondent admitted to a single Category 4 violation for violating transportation or delivery requirements. As noted in the settlement agreement, this could have been pled as a Category 3 violation for failure to follow seed-to-sale tracking requirements with a $10,000 civil penalty. The parties compromised and agreed to a single Category 4 violation and a payment of a $7,500 civil penalty. And we also considered respondent's cooperation in resolving this matter. Respondent did provide a plan of correction, which is detailed in paragraph 18 of the settlement agreement, and CCP staff has approved that plan. In summary, the plan of correction includes the following. Respondent put in place a new inventory control manager and added the position of inventory auditor, and also all inventory personnel have been trained on the proper transfer procedures and guidelines. Based on the foregoing, the Attorney General recommends and requests the CCB approve this settlement agreement. I'm available for questions, as is Ms. Connor for the licensee.
Call questions until we've heard from the licensee and counsel.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Executive Director Klimas, Amanda Connor from the law firm of Connor on behalf of Nevada Organic Remedies, and with me today is Mr. Hafer, CEO. We are here and happy to answer any questions. We appreciate Deputy Attorney General Rath in negotiating with us, and we kindly request approval of this settlement agreement.
Thank you. Board members, any questions or comments? If there's no questions or comments, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Board Member Nylander. I would move for approval of the settlement agreement in respect of item 3B as stated on the agenda.
Thank you. We have a motion for acceptance of settlement agreement as item 3B. Do we have a second?
This is Member Yang. I'll second that.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any Opposition? Opposed? Any abstentions? Matter carries
Thank you.
unanimously. Thank you. We now move down to item number 3C, compliance, Cannabis Compliance Board versus Trike Companies. Matter 2022-104.
Thank you, Chair. This matter involves the CCB versus the Trike Companies of Southern Nevada LLC under license numbers C031 and RC031. And as you noted, that's CCB case number 2022-104. The complaint in this case was filed and served on August 2nd, 2022 against respondent, a medical and adult use cannabis cultivation facility. Respondent has not filed an answer at this point. Rather, respondent requested and was granted an extension to answer the complaint until September 6th so that the parties could attempt to negotiate a settlement agreement for the board's consideration. And the parties were able to come to an agreement subject to your approval. The allegations in the complaint include respondent's purchase of cannabis outside the seed sale tracking system and from an unapproved and unlicensed source. Also, the complaint alleged there was storing of cannabis from an unlicensed source. And the third allegation was that respondent was making intentional or, in the alternative, unintentional misrepresentations to the board or board agents regarding the foregoing issues. As set forth in the foregoing settlement agreement, to resolve these matters, respondent admitted to one Category 2 violation for making an unintentionally false statement to the board or board agents, and a second Category 2 violation for purchasing cannabis from an unapproved source. In addition, respondent agreed to pay civil penalties in the total amount of $72,000 within 30 days from the date the CCB approves the settlement agreement if there is board approval. Respondent also provided a plan of correction, which is detailed in paragraph 17 of the settlement agreement. CCB staff has approved that plan. In summary, the plan of correction includes the following. Respondent acknowledged the subject cannabis seeds were not purchased in accordance with the NCCR and has counseled and trained its management staff and employees on the appropriate statutes and regulations for sourcing of cannabis seeds. Respondent counseled and warned its inventory control and compliance manager to ensure that he verifies all facts and information pertinent to CCB inquiries before making material representation to CCB's agents. And respondent has updated its standard operating procedures to ensure cannabis seeds are acquired in accordance with Nevada law in the future. Additionally, respondent has appropriately destroyed the properly acquired cannabis seeds. Based on the foregoing, the Attorney General again recommends and requests the CCB approve the settlement agreement. I'm available for questions, as is counsel for the respondent.
Thank you. We'll hold questions until we've heard from counsel and or his client.
Good morning, Chair Douglas, board members, director. Joel Schwartz, on behalf of Trike Companies, also present with me is Brett Scolari, Chief Compliance Officer at Trike Companies. I will be brief on this settlement. We appreciate Mr. and staff working with us to solve this in an expeditious manner to help facilitate the transfers of interest that are on the agenda for later. With this, I would just note that there was an employee who, in attempt to be zealous and responding promptly to some inquiry, provided inadvertently inaccurate information about what had transpired here. He has been directed to be a little more careful about how that transpires in the future, but there was never an intentional presentation of inaccurate information.
Thank you. Questions by board members?
I don't know who would answer this, but I don't know how seeds come into the state. We have a lot of cannabis here that we didn't used to, and it's supposed to be all from Nevada. So I don't think that I don't want you guys to answer for other licensees. Maybe the board should answer. If this isn't how we get seeds, how's it normally? I know normally it goes through a patient, but isn't the understanding is that the patient probably got it from out of state, right?
I think you raise an interesting topic, and I think Mr. Scolari can address that. One point I would make, maybe I'm preempting Mr. Scolari on this, is at this point in time, the DEA in particular does not consider cannabis seeds to be cannabis, or does not consider to be a controlled substance. And it does present an interesting challenge in that how actually do you label and track a seed? But those are issues that Mr. Scolari may also address here.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, Director Climas, Board, Brett Scolari, General Counsel for Trike Companies. Mr. Schwartz did indicate, I would first like to just reiterate too that, and this was in our plan of correction for this item, this originated what we considered a self-report. It was our compliance manager calling to ask a question of staff, and then it evolved into an investigation. And we do support the settlement agreement today. Appreciate Mr. Rass working with us and getting this expedited settlement. And I will say that this seed issue, I think, is should be involved in the overarching kind of discussion that's going on here about discipline and how we're regulated. I think it's worthy of discussion, and I also think there's other items that are worthy of discussion, and I'd be happy to participate since I've been going through these issues the last few months. So I just want to say thank you to you all, and we appreciate the support today.
Thank you for those comments. Additional questions? If not, do we have a motion?
This is
Mr.
Member
Chairman,
Young. Yeah.
go ahead.
Just Member
Dr.
Young,
Young.
I'll make the motion to approve item 3C, Cannabis Board versus Trike, as so stated in the agenda.
We have a motion for acceptance of the settlement contained under item 3C. Do we have a second?
Board Member Nylander, I would second the motion.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have any additional discussion? Hearing none at this time. All in favor of the settlement agreement, please say aye.
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 Any nays? Hearing none, matter carries unanimously. That moves us down to item number D, Cannabis Compliance Board versus Trike Companies. And this is as to 2022-109.
Thank you, Chair. The last item for the settlement agreements, as you stated, is case number 2022-109. This also involves Trike, but it's for license numbers D030 and D030 and RD030. And that is for their adult use and medical dispensary. This matter arises from an investigation conducted in June 2020. On June 16, 2020, at about 11 a.m., the CCB's investigation team observed consumers from Trike's dispensary consuming cannabis on Trike's premises and warned the licensee of this issue. However, later that same day, just after noon, CCB's audit team then arrived at Trike's dispensary and again observed consumers from Trike's dispensary consuming cannabis on the premises. Respondent was again advised of this situation, and the CCB staff issued a statement of deficiencies letter to respondent on July 5, 2022 for both instances of on-site consumption of cannabis. As we were already in negotiation with Trike's counsel on the previous matter, we went ahead and entered into negotiations on this matter and were able to resolve it for this separate license, and therefore the respondent waived the filing and service of a complaint and agreed to resolve the matter on the terms set forth in the settlement agreement. As set forth in that agreement, to resolve the matter, respondent admitted to a single Category 3 violation for allowing consumption of cannabis on the premises of its dispensary. As you recall, this license, D030 and RD030, admitted to multiple violations in an earlier case, CCB case number 2022-81, one of which was a Category 3 violation. Thus, progressive discipline does apply in this case, and this is the second Category 3 violation within the last 3 years. As a result, respondent has also agreed to pay a civil penalty of $30,000 to resolve this matter within 30 days of the CCB's approval of the settlement agreement. Again, there's also been a plan of correction provided, which CCB staff has approved. As far as the plan of correction, respondent identified a gap in its security during shift changes and added new requirements to its security plan and standard operating procedures to remedy that issue. Respondent counseled and provided additional training to its security guards on these issues, especially with regard to exercising increased vigilance in monitoring the parking areas on the premises. Respondent has also instructed its employees to remind all customers that on-site consumption is prohibited. Based on the foregoing, Attorney General again recommends and requests that CCB approve this settlement agreement. I'm available for any questions, as is Respondent's counsel once again.
Thank you. On behalf of Trike.
Good morning again, Chair Douglas, Dr. Clemens. I would respectfully submit that this falls into one of the categories of violations that Member Durrett has noticed as is almost inevitable it's going to happen, in that you can post signage as they do. You can remind people that they're not supposed to do this as they do, but once they step outside the front door, if a security person is in the restroom, as was the case, it's one of these violations. Somebody may choose to consume on site. It's going to happen. I submit that the respondent has done what it can to make sure that there are not gaps in its security, but I think that this is an inevitable violation that probably most licensees deal with in some over time. The timing is unfortunate. I know that the respondent accepts the settlement in part to facilitate the transfers of interest that are at issue. That being said, I can answer any questions from Mr. Scaleri as well.
Good morning, Mr. Chair. Again, Brett Scaleri, General Counsel. Just wanted to add, when this issue came up, I, as always, got immediately involved with our security staff, and our security director spent hours coming up with plans and trainings and things that can help the on-site consumption issue, especially at this location where it's frequented by tourists. They will ignore warnings, they'll ignore signs, it's very hard to kind of correct that and get people to realize. But our security director did spend a large amount of time. We think we can mitigate these instances, if not 100%, as close to it as we can. But it is going to happen at some of these establishments that folks are just going to flat out ignore the warnings and the signage. So I just wanted to reiterate that we do accept this proposal and would appreciate your support.
Thank you. Additional questions or concerns of members of the board?
I have a comment. I think it's unfortunate that you feel as if you have to accept these because of the situation you're in, although I'm sure the transfer is a good thing for your company. So I'm sure that's more important to you right now. I would like to see licensees availing themselves of the process that's available to them, and individuals, because individuals are sometimes fined. There is an entire process. I think when the industry was working on AB 533, working with the lawmakers, they were able to put guardrails and protections in there, and someday I'd like to see those used, those protections used, so that we're not in the situation of we feel like these fines are too high, but we're going to accept these agreements and ask you to accept these agreements, because then we're going to accept the agreement. So on your behalf. So that's just a comment in general. Thanks.
Thank you. Any other comments? If not, can we have a motion, please?
This is Member Young, and that we approve the settlement agreement item 3D, the Cannabis Compliance Board versus Trike, as so stated in the agenda.
We have a motion for acceptance of the settlement agreement on 2022-109. Do we have a second?
Member Merritt, I have a second.
We have a motion, we have a second. We have any additional discussion? Hearing none at this time. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Matter carries unanimously. Thank you very much. That moves us to item number 4, request for transfers of interest. And we continue with Trike.
Good morning, Chair Douglas, Member Merritt, Member Nylander, Member Durrett, and Member Young. For the record, I am David Staley, Division Chief of Investigations for the CCB. I'm here to present agenda item number 4, which consists of 7 transfer of interest or TOI applications. Item A are TOI applications by Trike Companies SONV LLC and Trike Companies Reno LLC, together Trike, and Curaleaf Holdings Inc. TOIs number 21027, 21028, 2100055, and 22013 were filed for approval of internal Trike restructuring and preparation for Curaleaf to purchase Trike and its licenses. Areas of concern are with Trike were not included in the investigative report as they were recently settled, and the settlement agreement was approved by the board just minutes ago. In addition, Curaleaf has requested waivers pursuant to NCCR 5.112 and NCCR 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding a review of owners related to transfers of under 5%. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limit such waivers to expire on the next agenda date for a Curaleaf transaction. An early suitability review for a lounge license was also completed in conjunction with the investigation for these TOIs. The investigative report concluded that Curaleaf is not only suitable for the requested TOIs, but is also suitable for potential lounge license. The early review did not include specifics related to the operations and location of this proposed lounge, which will still need to be investigated by CCB audit and inspections after the lounge application period, along with a brief update from CCB investigations. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Amanda Connor, Brett Scolari, Adam Ryan, Will Meyer, and Peter Clayton are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. On behalf of our licensee.
Good morning, Chairman, members of the board, Director Klimas. Amanda Connor from the law firm of Connor & Connor on behalf of Curaleaf, who is proposed to acquire these licenses. With me today, I have Peter Clayton via Zoom, General Counsel, as well as Kayanne Ticey. She's the Director of Compliance for Curaleaf. I also have our Brett Scolari is also here on behalf of Trike.
Morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Brett Scolari, General Counsel for Trike Companies. With me today on Zoom is Adam Ryan, our Chairman and CEO, as well as Will Meyer, who's Transaction Counsel for Trike Companies on this matter. I also wanted to thank Mr. Staley and his staff for the review of these TOI applications, and we would appreciate the support on behalf of 200 plus Trike employees in Nevada. We're excited for the Curaleaf transaction and combining talent and resources and making the company stronger. So we would appreciate support today.
Questions or any concerns by any board member?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. This question is for Curaleaf. Any immediate plans with respect to the operations once the transfer is approved?
Amanda Connor, Connor & Connor, Ms. Ticey may be able to speak more to it, but my understanding is they have been carefully working with Trike to get familiar with the operations. They will be bringing in their corporate structure and compliance team, but no immediate plans to change direct operations.
Okay, thank you.
Member Durrett?
Are there any operators from Curaleaf present, like the CEO or the COO? I know Miss Ticey's, very well qualified, but she's
not an operator.
Right?
Peter Clayton is an officer of Curaleaf.
Okay. I think it would be helpful in the future to have like an operator, not just the attorneys, because as attorneys we can only answer so much. We're not the actual operator, right? So anyway, I had another question. So there are also 2 other pending matters relating to Trike, right? So what would happen if the transfer was requested, or if the transfer was granted today?
Can you clarify?
aren't there two other matters on the August agenda? I mean, September agenda? Or no?
Member Durrett, no, the only pending matters were the ones resolved today with respect to trike.
Okay, okay, thanks.
Noting for the record, Chair Douglas, regulatory checks indicated that, and no problems with Nevada Secretary of State, Nevada Department of Tax, City of Las Vegas, City of Sparks, and for the most part in other jurisdictions that were queried. So very favorable information was provided. Do we have a motion to this matter?
Member Durrett, I beat you to it. I move to approve the transfer of interest under agenda item 4A.
Thank you. Do we have a second as to this transfer of interest?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would second and note that we do have a condition on this item, that the waivers pursuant to Reg 5 would be conditioned to expire on Curaleaf's next agenda date.
Does the maker accept those?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. With that, any additional comment? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much and good
Thank
luck.
you, and thank you to Investigator Covington and Chief Staley.
Thank you.
That moves us to item number 4B as the DB Labs.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, David Staley. Item B are TOI applications by DB Labs and Kaicha Group, Inc. TOIs number 21029 through 21032, as well as 21047, were filed for approval of internal DB Labs restructuring in preparation for Kaicha to purchase DB Labs and its licenses. In addition, Kaicha has requested waivers pursuant to 5.112 and 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding a waiver of owners related to transfers of under 5%. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limits such waivers to expire on the next agenda date for a Kaicha transaction. Staff identified an area of concern with TOI number 21029 through 21032 and 21047 because DB Labs filed later incomplete tax returns with the Nevada Department of Taxation 6 times respectively during the last 3 years. CCB staff have provided potential options for the board's consideration to proceed with these TOIs. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Susan and Curtis Bunce, James Horvath, Alicia Ashcraft, and Chris Martinez are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Counselor licensee wish to make any statement?
Good morning, Chair Douglas, members of the board, Director Klimas, Alicia Ashcraft, the law firm of Armstrong Teasdale, on behalf of the buyer, Kasha Labs. With me by way of Zoom is CEO James Horvath. Happy to answer any questions and respectfully request approval of this transfer. I also understand that Susan and Curtis Bunce are also here as well if you have any questions of sellers. Thanks so much for your consideration.
Questions of either parties by any of the board members, just noting out of report that it was raised as the taxes. For me, that's kind of a non-starter. They're current. We have 1 day, 5 days late, but they are all current, so that's not a stumbling block.
Understood. Thank you, Chair.
We have no questions. Do we have a motion or do we have other?
So, Mr. Chairman, if I could back up, I'm sorry, I'm a little slow today. If I could ask the representative from Kaicha, what are the current plans and assuming the transfer of interest is approved for the operation.
So we actually are currently in a management agreement that was approved last year.
That's
so
right.
there's really no changes that we're looking to other than expansion. So we've been working on expansion over the course of the past year, but the changes within the company would be minimal. There's a couple of additional methods that we'll complete and then submit to the state. We're in 9 other states right now, so we've got a few improvements that we want to make, but no significant operational changes.
Okay, well, no, I appreciate that because I do know the company is active in several other jurisdictions, and I'm just wondering if you're going to be able to sort of use those synergies to improve operations, or
we certainly hope so.
Yeah,
that's the goal.
So there are some,
Right.
hopefully.
Yes.
Yeah.
Can I have you state your name for the record to make our reporter happy?
My name is James Horvath, the CEO for Catcha Labs.
Thank you.
Yes.
Other board members? If not, if we can have a motion as to this TOI request. And if we have a motion considering the NCCR 5.112 request and the 5.110.
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would move for approval of item B involving DB Labs and Kaicha Group. And that would be conditioned that the waivers under Regulation 5 would expire on Kaicha Group's next agenda date.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Member Young, I'll second that.
It's been moved. It's been seconded. Any additional comments? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
That moves us to item number 4C as to Deep Roots Harvest and CPRP Distributors LLC.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, my name is David Staley, Chief Investigations for the CCB. Item C are TOI applications by Deep Roots Harvest Inc. and GPRP Distributors LLC. TOIs number 21048, 21053, and 22002 were filed for approval of internal Deep Roots restructuring and approval for Deep Roots to purchase GPRP and its distributor's license. In addition, Deep Roots has requested waivers pursuant to NCCR 5.112 and NCCR 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding a review of owners related to transfers of under 5%. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limits such waivers to expire in the next agenda date for a Deep Roots transaction. An early suitability review for a lounge license was also completed in conjunction with the investigation for these TOIs. The investigative report concluded that Deep Roots is not only suitable for the requested TOIs, but is also suitable for a potential lounge license. The early review did not include specifics related to the operations and location of this proposed lounge, which will still need to be investigated by CCB audit and inspections after the lounge application period, along with a brief update from CCB investigations. Staff identified areas of concern with these TOIs because GPRP filed later incomplete tax returns with the Nevada Department of Taxation 7 times during the last 3 years. CCB staff have provided potential options for board's consideration to proceed with these TOIs. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Lori Rogich, Keith Capurro, and Dennis Smith are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. And our licensing council.
Morning, Chairman Douglas, members of the board, Director Klimas, Chief Staley, and Agent Dean. My name is Lori Rogish, and I am here on behalf of Deep Roots Harvest Inc. and GPRP Distributors LLC. With me today is Keith Capurro. Mr. Capurro is the President and Chief Executive Officer of Deep Roots Harvest and a manager of GPRP Distributors. Mr. Capurro is also a founder and board member of Deep Roots, and under his leadership, Deep Roots has been awarded 18 licenses throughout the state of Nevada. Also with me today is Dennis Smith, Mr. Smith is the Treasurer and Chief Financial Officer of Deep Roots. He is also our first employee. Mr. Smith was hired in 2015, and with his guidance, Deep Roots has become one of the most financially successful companies in our industry. We would like to take this moment to thank the board and each CCP agent that we have worked with throughout the years. I have been with Deep Roots since its formation in 2014. We appreciate the CCP's hard work and dedication to making Nevada the gold standard in our industry. Thank you for all that you have done and all that you are doing, and thank you for letting us be a part of it. With that being said, we are here today to answer your questions with regard to our transfer of interest applications and waiver applications.
Thank you. Noting for the record, there was a reference to tax. We note that there's no monetary returns due at this time. This issue also was covered previously. And I'll leave it at that. With that, any other member wish to weigh in and ask any questions?
This is Member Nylander. Ms. Rogich, it looks like really this is more of an internal transfer. I mean, it's just trying to wrap up some of the prim stuff in a more organized way.
That is correct.
And are any of the prims present today?
No, they are not.
Okay.
But Mr. Caporo is here as a manager of GPRP Distributors.
Yeah, and the company's functioning very well. I mean, I didn't have any concerns at all about this, but I was going to ask the prims, given some of the issues we're dealing with in the cannabis industry, and the prims have a long storied history in the gaming industry, which very familiar with them. And at the time that the gaming industry, well, there was a prohibition on getting involved in cannabis, so they chose to take the cannabis route and not the gaming route. But we've had a couple of occasions today to talk about minors, and because in the gaming industry, and I wanted to ask them about this, but I'll just make this as a comment that minors are always trying to gamble. So we've struck a balance between have your procedures in place and follow them. And if you don't do that, that's subject to disciplinary action. But if you do that and somehow something happens, it's going to be a violation noted, but perhaps not disciplinary action unless it occurs on more occasions or there's a breakdown. And we discussed gaps earlier. So, yeah, but again, I don't have any concerns about this particular TOI. And as the chairman stated, these tax things are minor things that I don't think should come to any level of scrutiny from this board.
Thank you.
Additional questions or comments? Can we have a motion, please?
Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would move that we approve transfer of this interest item C as noted on the agenda, and that would be conditioned that the Reg 5 waivers would expire on Deep Roots Harvest next agenda date.
Thank you. We have a motion for approval. Do we have a second?
It's Member Young, second that.
We have a motion. We have a second. We have any additional discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Thank you very
Anyone for
much.
denial? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you very much
you.
and good luck. Moves us to item number D, Two Skirts and West 118 Investment LLC.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, my name is David Staley, Chief of Investigations for the CCB. Item D is a TOI application from Two Skirts Cultivation and Production LLC and West 118 Investments LLC. TUI number 21039 was filed by Two Skirts requesting approval for West 118 to acquire Two Skirts cultivation and production licenses. Madeline Castor is the 100% owner of Two Skirts and as a 27.3 member of West 118 will remain the controlling member over the licenses. No areas of concern were identified during the investigation into this TOI application. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Madeline Castor, William Ross, Adam Fulton, Mohammed, and Hassan Asori are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Council and licensees representations.
Good morning, Chairman. Good morning, members of the board, Director Klimas. We appreciate staff's hard work and their assistance in helping us get this TOI submitted. And we're in the process of opening a cultivation in Fernley, Nevada, which will be fun for the city up there. It's been great to work with them. The local populace is excited to have the opportunity for the business such as this to be there. And we just received our certificate of occupancy. We're in the process now of working with the CCB for final approvals, and we'll begin operations once we receive that.
That's quite an accomplishment because I know there were location issues in that area.
Yes, there were.
Excuse me, can I get your name, please?
Adam Fulton, sorry, counsel for West 118.
With that, do we have any additional questions or comments we should make?
No, just for Mr. Fulton, this is Board Member Nylander. Appreciate the clean application and all the work you've done to get to this point. And it's nice to see that. I have no concerns at all, and wish you the best of luck.
Thank you.
If we have no other comments, if we can get a motion for approval.
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would move for approval of item 4D as read into the record and stated on the agenda. I don't think we have any questions for this.
Member Merritt, I second.
We have a motion. We have a second for approval. Any additional comments? Hearing none. All in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Any dissent? Matter carries unanimously. Good luck and thank you.
Thank you.
Moves us to item E, Euphoria Wellness.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, I'm David Staley, Chief of Investigations for the CCB. Item E is a TOI filed by Euphoria Wellness LLC. TOI 21054 was filed by Euphoria requesting approval for the transfer of 6% membership interest being held in its treasury account to 3 existing internal ownership entities. In addition, Euphoria has requested waivers pursuant to NCCR 5.112 and NCCR 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding a review of owners related to transfers of under 5%. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limit such waivers to expire on the next agenda date for a Euphoria transaction. No areas of concern were identified during the investigation into this TOI application. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that lawyer Larry Doyle and Nicole Lovelock are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. We'll hold questions on behalf of licensee.
Good morning, Nicole Lovelock, counsel for Euphoria Wellness, and I have actually with me the managing director, Darlene Purdy Skinner, and we can answer any questions you have. This is a very simple internal transfer.
Thank you. Questions or comments by board members? Making this too easy.
We thank you for your time. This has been an easy process, and so we really appreciate Mr. Staley and his staff.
With that, can we have a motion?
Member Merritt, I would like to move that we approve the transfer of interest for Euphoria Wellness LLC.
We have a motion for approval, and that's with the waiver of 5.125. With that, can we have a second, please?
Mr. Chairman, I would second that motion.
It's been moved and seconded. All in favor, please say aye if there's no additional discussion.
Aye.
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 Anyone dissenting? Matter carries unanimously. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you so much.
Moves us to item F, Planet 13 Holding.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, I'm David Staley, Chief of Investigations for the CCB. Item F are TOI applications by Planet 13 Holdings, Inc. TOI number 21037 was mistakenly assigned to the previously approved sale of Planet 13's distribution license T077 to Natural Medicine and is included only as a housekeeping item for removal from CCB records. TOI number 21024 was filed requesting approval of various secondary equity offerings by Planet 13 for approval of internal restructuring to facilitate the co-CEO's estate planning and to capture information that was previously omitted due to administrative limitations experienced by the Department of Taxation. In addition, Planet 13 has requested waivers pursuant to NCCR 5.112 and NCCR 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding a review of owners related to transfers of under 5%. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limits such waivers to expire on the next agenda date for a Planet 13 transaction. An early suitability review for a lounge license was also completed in conjunction with the investigation for these TOIs. The investigative report concluded that Planet 13 is not only suitable for the requested TOIs, but also suitable for a potential lounge license. The early review did not include specifics related to the operations and location of this proposed lounge, which will still need to be investigated by CCB audit and inspections after the lounge application period, along with a brief update from CCB investigations. No areas of concern were identified during the investigation into this TOI application. I am available for any questions, and my understanding is that Amanda Connor, Leighton Kohler, Larry Scheffler, and Robert Grosbeck are available to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. Ms. Connor, on behalf licensee.
Chair, if I may start, please. Nice to see you again, Chair, members. Thanks for having us here today. I'd like to, before I talk about these TOIs or
Can I get your name, please?
Oh, I'm sorry. This is Leighton Kohler on behalf of Planet 13 Holdings and licensee Development Company, Inc. And with me here to answer any questions you may have also, just to confirm what Chief Staley said, we do have Robert Grosbeck, founder, co-CEO, board member, and Larry Scheffler, founder, co-CEO, and board member. So before I launch into answering any questions you may have, and I would request that you approve this, but I wanted to call out some specific staff names and give a compliment. This was our first time as a licensee working with investigator Danny Sandrock, and I think the best compliment I can give Chief Staley is to give a compliment to his staff. She was wonderful to work with, and I appreciate that. And these are difficult topics that we get into with transfers of interest. They're technical. They require a lot of feedback and follow-up and collaboration to get to the end. And it was just a pleasure to work there. So I just wanted to relay that to the board. So with that, do you have any questions for me to answer about our TOIs? Most of these relate to public company financings. And I think with Director Klimas here, this goes back all the way to 2020 with meetings we had with the CCB as we were refining the public company process in Nevada. So with that, I'm available to answer any questions you may have.
Questions or comments by the board members? We note this is basically a cleanup item. Also was noted that there's no monopolistic issues as noted in the report. So any comments or questions you wish to ask, an opportunity.
This is member Nylander for Mr. Kohler. The secondary markets for these public offerings, is that an attractive space right now?
No, it is not. So we're getting right to the point. The entire markets, when they go down, cannabis usually has a multiplier that we go down even further. And so, no, that's something that we're not availing ourselves of at this time. But we've got a bright future ahead, and we're excited for that. So,
yeah, and this allows you to do that when the markets are more favorable.
It does, and I would also express appreciation for the conditional TOI process, which I think will
greatly speed up um, our ability to obtain TOIs in the future.
No, and I'm glad to hear that because I was hoping more companies would take advantage of that process. And I'm glad that's on your mind as you go forward. I didn't have anything further, Mr. Chairman.
Anyone else have any comment or question they wish to ask? If not, if we can have a motion then, please.
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would move for approval of item F, Planet 13 Holdings, transfer of interest as stated on the agenda, and would be conditioned that the waivers pursuant to Regulation 5 would be expiring on the company's next agenda date.
And that's been so noted in the record beginning June 30th, 2023 as to NCCR 5110 and NCCR 5.112 and NCCR 5.125. With that, do we have a second?
This is Member Young. I'll second that.
It's been moved and seconded. Any additional comment or discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
That would move us to item G, 5-Seat Investment LLC.
Chair Douglas, members of the board, for the record, my name is David Staley, Chief of Investigations for the CCB. Item G is a TOI application by 5-Seat Investments LLC and SSAC Corporation. TOI number 21045 was filed by 5-Seat and SSAC requesting approval for the transfer of 5-Seat's dispensary license to SSAC. 5-Seat will continue to operate its cultivation and production licenses. In addition, 5-Seat has requested waivers pursuant to NCCR 5.112 and NCCR 5.125 of the requirements of NCCR 5.110 regarding review of owners related to transfers of under 5%. Staff suggests that if approved, the board limits such waivers to expire on the next agenda date for a 5-Seat transaction. Staff identified areas of concern with TOI 21045 because 5-Seat filed late or incomplete tax returns with the Nevada Department of Taxation 21 times during the last 3 years, and SSAC filed late or incomplete tax returns 8 times during the last 3 years. CCB staff have provided potential options for the board's consideration to proceed with TOI 21045. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Stefan Haller, Patrick Spidel, and Rick and Jeanette Riberan are available to address any questions you may have as well. For that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. On behalf of licensing, Mr. Fulton.
Thank you. Adam Fulton, counsel for SSAC. Again, like to thank the members of the board, chairman and Director Klimas, also staff for working with us through these matters. Again, they've been fantastic to work with as always. Counsel for 5-Seat is informed he's having some technological issues getting on. It's Mark Forsberg, but his clients, Rick and Jeanette Iribaran, are here in person in Carson City, as is my client, Mr. Haller. Stephen Haller is here in person, but also in Carson City. So any questions you have for us, I'm happy to answer them and request the board approve the transfer.
We'll open it up to the board for any questions. Noted in the report that the State of Nevada Department of Tax indicated that taxation notified CCB of compliance issues with both state and SSAC as a state as the tax issues. So with that, questions by the board.
Just for the record, Mr. Fulton, this is Member Nylander. My understanding is that companies are both currently in compliance with all the required filings.
That's my understanding as well.
Thank you.
With that, do we have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. I would move for approval of item G as stated on the agenda, condition that the Regulation 5 approvals for waivers be set to expire on the company's next agenda date.
We have a motion for approval, TOI. Do we have a second?
Is Member Young? I'll second that.
Been moved and seconded. Any additional discussions or questions? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
With that, we will go to our next matter, management. Item number 6, request for consideration approval of management services agreement. Understand item A is off the agenda at this time, Mesa Oils, which moves us to B, My Life Organics.
Thank you, Chair Douglas, members of the board. For the record, I'm David Staley, Division Chief of Investigations for the CCB. I'm here to present agenda item number 5, which consists of one management services agreement or MSA. Item B is an MSA between My Life Organics, Inc. and Dune Operating Holdings, LLC. GCB staff have reviewed the agreement and found the relationship between the parties to be appropriate. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Brianna Martinez and Jeremy Holmes are present today to address any questions you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I'll turn this item back to you.
Thank you. On behalf of the licensee.
Good morning, Chair Douglas, members of the board, Director Climate. This is just a simple management agreement. We're looking for transfer of interest. It's been pending. This is simply to maintain the status quo until that has been ruled upon by the board. And I am here on behalf of both My Life Organics and Dune Operating Holdings. So if you have any questions, assist.
For the record, if you'll state your name.
Oh, I'm sorry. Jeremy Holmes, the law firm Hayes Wakayama. Apologize.
Questions by any board members? If we have no questions, if we can get a motion.
Member Dret, I move to approve the management agreement under agenda item 5B. It would be approved as to the relationship, not the content.
With that being said, do we have a second?
Member Merritt, I second.
It's been moved and seconded for approval. All in favor, if there's no additional statements, please say aye.
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 Been approved. Thank you
All right,
very
thank you
much
for your time.
unanimously. Moves us to item number 6. Petition for additional retest file pursuant to NCCR 11.075 subsection 7, Lone Mountain Partners.
Good afternoon, Chair and members of the board. For the record, I'm Kara Cronkite, Division Chief of Inspection and Audit for the CCB. I'm here to present agenda item number 6, which consists of one petition for additional retests of failed cannabis from Lone Mountain Partners, LLC. Lone Mountain filed this petition on July 8th, 2022, requesting an additional 50 retests after failing initial laboratory analysis. The facility has provided a list of the previous 50 retests completed and is now requesting approval for an additional 50. After review of the initial petition, CCB staff requested additional information from Lone Mountain Partners, including any corrective actions which have been taken to address the contamination within the facility. Lone Mountain provided a response on July 12th, 2022 that was determined to be appropriate to reduce or eliminate aspergillus contamination within the facility. The board has the discretion to take the following actions: grant the petition and allow all retests requested, grant in part the petition and allow some retests requested, deny with prejudice, deny without prejudice and allow the licensee to file a second petition before the end of this year, deny in part but allow the licensee to request to remediate or send the failed cannabis to extraction, or any other action the board deems appropriate. I'm available for any questions, and my understanding is that Derek Connor and James Leventis are available to address any questions that you may have as well. With that, Chair Douglas, I turn this item back to you.
Before I ask Mr. Connor to speak on behalf of the petition, you had noted that the request was incomplete. Is that still your position?
Initially, the request was incomplete. However, once additional information was provided, the request was incomplete at that time.
Thank you. Mr. Connor.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Derek Connor on behalf of the law firm of Connor and Connor PLLC, appearing for Lone Mountain Partners. I also want to thank Ms. Cronkite. Working with her staff is a pleasure as always. We're here with also the counsel for the company, Mr. James Leventis. We're prepared to answer any questions the board may have. I think Ms. Cronkite summarized it pretty well. And one thing I would kind of like to call to the attention of the board is many of those tests that did get sent for retest ended up passing. I'm dyslexic, so pardon me. I think I got an 18, could be 81, I don't know. So it's 18 of those tests that I'm aware of did actually end up passing tests. And with that, I will turn it over for any questions you may have.
Questions by the board?
This is Member Young. I have a few questions. My first is, I guess, a general question to Lone Mountain. It sounds like you have a
Sorry,
contamination
excuse
issue.
me, Member Young, can you?
Yep.
You're breaking up. I'm not sure if it's your microphone, but if you can start over, please.
Sure. This is Member Young. I have a few questions. My first is general question to Lone Mountain, in that it sounds as though you have a contamination issue at the facility. Has there been any attempt to identify the source of that contamination?
Oh, I can answer that. Can everybody hear me?
And if you state your name for the record, please.
James Leventis, Executive Vice President for Lone Mountain Partners.
Thank you.
Yeah, I believe we've outlined this for the investigators, and we've done quite a bit of R&D testing. We've changed a number of our processes on site, including introducing new bactericides, new potting soil materials, and even changing the material for the trellises to be less porous. And all of that has greatly improved the quality and the environmental controls on site. We've never had issues like this in the past. We were sort of testing different options out, which led to some of the failed testing. As Mr. Connor outlined, a lot of the retests did come through negative, which was good. And we haven't had any issues, and I don't believe we've had any negative tests, or I should say positive tests, since this was outlined several months ago. So we think that we've remediated everything, and we're just petitioning for additional retests for the remainder of the year.
Other board members wish to have questions answered?
Mr. Chairman, this is Member Nylander. Just if someone could walk me through the extraction process, because I'm not real familiar with how it works, and what would happen if the product were extracted. I guess it would then have to be retested.
Chief Cronkite, for the record, I can address that. If a facility wishes to send failed cannabis to extraction as their form of remediation, then they would request permission through the CCB. If approved, they would send it to a production facility where it would be extracted into an oil, for example, and then that oil would be tested. So that would not fall under the category of retest. This would not count as a retest. It would count as a request to send to extraction.
And is that part of the company's plan here? Or is it just to remediate and have the ability to retest? Because we're at that limit that's in the regulation.
I believe first and foremost, what we would like is the ability to retest, since we've maxed out our retest capabilities. And again, this is just sort of forward thinking. That's why we're making the petition. We have it's August now. I'll do the math in my head, but I think we have 4 or 5 months left in the calendar year. And we just want to have the freedom to be able to retest should we have any sort of a positive test, 1 or 2 that comes through. We don't want to be hamstrung going forward now that we have corrected the quality issues on site.
So, and I know this is in our materials, but I was a little bit confused. So since you've taken these steps to clean up the contamination, you have not had any negative or positive tests?
That's my understanding. Yes, I don't believe we've had any positive tests. I think I got that correct. Positive tests since these issues have been identified, and we've modified our processes.
And so how long of a period was it since you did the cleanup?
This has been a couple of months now. This would date back to, I believe, June.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
And this is Member Young, just for clarification for myself. The retest, are you talking about retesting samples that have failed twice now? That samples that have retested and failed, want to test them again? Or is this just to have these available for you for the rest of the year in case other samples should fail?
We're seeking the ability to test past that 50 limit now, so that we have the ability to retest going forward.
But just for my clarification, will some of those samples be ones that have already failed twice?
No.
No.
This is perspective. This is to go forward.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I have a comment, Member Durrett, for the record. It seems like our process is working. I think it's great to see that we addressed this regulation and looked at whether or not there could be a request for retest, allowed some discretion, but there were red flags here, and now it's been addressed. So it's great to see that the process is working.
Any other board member have questions that wish to ask? Comments?
Mr. Chairman, this is more of a comment, but just again, trying to be clear. So if we were to approve this, would we condition it that it's only prospective in nature, so that this is not the ability to retest a bunch of, like Dr. Young said, things that have failed twice?
Ms. Concrete, any?
This is Chief Cronkite for the record. The CCB does not allow for cannabis that has failed twice to be tested a third time. At that point, it can either be sent to extraction or upon approval of the board agent or destroyed.
And this is Tyler Climas for the record. One thing maybe to consider if we're looking at prospectus, that I think maybe the concern is that there's product that's already been pre-identified that would be utilized for one of the additional 50 tests the board is to approve. So I'm assuming there could be a condition that these 50 retests would only pertain to any product that was grown, or harvested post-June or post-remediation efforts.
Mr. Connor, do you wish to weigh in at all as to what's just said?
I think our client would like the opportunity to follow, the existing regulations if there is one that has only failed once, to have it retested. So, I think we would probably prefer to have that go as something that would count for a few of these remaining items that fell outside the scope of the original 50 retest limit that we had. So I would probably defer to Mr. Leventis on that, but I'm assuming that's what the client would request here.
Correct. We're simply looking to petition for an additional 50 tests. We're not looking to test something that's failed twice, certainly. We're simply looking to expand from 50 to 100 as per the regs.
Thank you for that clarification. Do we have further questions, or are we ready for a motion?
I had one further question, if I could. This is Member
That's
Young.
fine.
The samples that did fail twice, were those sent for remediation or extraction?
The samples that this is Derek Connor for the record, the samples that we included in this petition have not. No, they've only failed once. So if they failed twice, we would have the opportunity at that point to apply for remediation or destruction. So at this point, I do not believe any of these particular ones were sent out for extraction, if that makes sense.
I mean, this is Member Young, and I would like to move forward with a motion to regarding item 6A, and that I'm inclined to grant the 50 retests. They looks like as though they did everything correct. They identified a problem, they corrected the problem, and the retesting, we've not had further problems. So I think that should be supported, and I'm inclined to grant the 50 additional retests.
This is Member Nylander. I would certainly second that motion. I think I appreciate the applicant's guidance in terms of understanding the process, and I know that it seems like there were a number of issues, and as Member Drett indicated, they've the regulation was to try to give some flexibility, but also require those issues to be resolved. And so I'm comfortable seconding the motion and moving forward.
We have a motion on the floor. If we have no additional comment at this time for approval of the retests, subject to the information that was provided that no items had failed twice. With that being said, all in favor of approval, please say aye.
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 Anyone dissenting? Hearing none, the matter carries. Thank you.
Thank you very much, and thank you, Mr. Cronkite.
Thank you, everyone.
That moves us to item 7. Consideration of proposed adoption, amendments, and/or repeal of Nevada Cannabis Compliance Regulation. Regulation 5, licensing background checks and registration cards, NCCR 5.040, NCCR 5.057, lack of an ordinance from local government jurisdiction conclusively establishing no limits on business licenses for cannabis consumption lounge in local governmental jurisdictions. And why don't we take A first and then come to B?
Good morning. For the record, I'm Michael Miles, Deputy Director of the Cannabis Compliance Board. I'm going to go through the proposed changes to the consumption lounge regs, which were approved at the June 28th.
Excuse me, sir. Can you please slow down?
I'll try. The agenda item 7A are changes and additions to Regulation 5. NCCR 5.040 has very minor housekeeping updates, but the major addition is the named grandfather clause under 5.040 section 3E1. This clause makes the grandfather date the same as the date of the application as found in NRS 678B.250 section 3A22. The next one is NCCR 5.057, is an addition to Regulation 5 that simply states localities that haven't set a limit prior to the day the CCB sends out its application notice will be deemed to have no limit on the amount of licenses it may grant. This in no way prevents a locality from setting and enforcing any limit it wishes. It just protects the CCB's application process for that round. And with that, I turn it back to the board. If you have any questions, I'm available, as well as staff members.
Do we have anyone who wishes to speak as to this first area?
Good morning, board and staff. For the record, Chris Anderson, president of Solid Consulting, on behalf of Planet 13 Holdings. I wanted to make a comment on the proposed changes to NCCR 5.040. I'd just like to draw your attention to the written comments we submitted regarding the proposed changes to Regulation 5. We hope the comments will be given due consideration by the board in its drafting, and if adopted, application of the proposed changes to Regulation 5.040. If the board deems it appropriate, I believe any clarifying comments you wish to make on the item would be helpful to the industry relative to location eligibility for retail lounge licensing. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Anyone else wish to make any comment? Hearing none. Questions, concerns by any board member or any statement?
This is Member Nylander. I don't have any questions or concerns. We discussed this at some length in a couple of our meetings, so I'm prepared to go forward.
Chair Douglas, for the record, much like Mr. Nylander, we have discussed this. The purpose of this was just to make sure that it was understood that we were referring back to specificity that was established by the legislature and what we would look at for verbiage. And that was the purpose of insert 678B 322 sub 2 sub A. And the other mentioned purposes so that you know misunderstanding what language we were referring to. So if we have discussion by the board as to this, if not, if we can entertain a motion, since item 7A sub 1 sub 2 as to 5.040 and 5.057.
Are you ready for a motion, Mr. Chairman?
I'm ready to hear something.
Well, yeah, so my understanding, again, I think we're going to be, as we move forward in the consumption lounge space, we're certainly going to have to tweak things, and we're going to come across things we're not even thinking of right now. But this is really just, we're going back to what the statute, and what the legislature gave us, which was somewhat confusing, but so we're just relying on what they essentially passed. So I think we, unless something's different is done in the next session, I think it's appropriate for us to take that path.
So I take it we have a motion for approval on those two items.
Yeah, I would move for approval of agenda item 7A subs 1 and 2 for adoption of those particular draft regulations.
Thank you. Do we have a second?
It's Member Young. I second that.
We have a motion. We have a second for adoption of 5.040 and 5.057 as proposed. Any additional discussion? If not, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Aye. Anyone wishing to dissent? Hearing none, the motion carries unanimously as to A. Moving to B, Regulation 6, production and distribution of cannabis as to NCCR 6.085.
Excuse me, I can't hear whoever.
Sorry, I didn't hit it. Again, for the record, I'm Michael Miles, Deputy Director of the Cannabis Compliance Board. Agenda item 7B are changes to Regulation 6. NCCR 6.085 has a minor update to the requirements for monitoring real-time security camera footage. In particular, it removes the requirement that the footage must be continually monitored. And with that, I turn it back to the chair.
Thank you. Anyone wish to speak as to this particular item? No one coming forth. Ms. Tourette, you had some comments about this previously.
Member Durrett, for the record, I support this change. Thank you very much for making this change and holding the item for the next meeting so we could make the change. I believe this makes sense because we want to take a pragmatic approach and continuously monitoring. Maybe a little too much, but also I don't think it describes exactly what you need to continually monitor. So I think this language makes more sense. We do monitor every room, every minute. So this makes more sense. Thank you.
Any other board member wish to weigh in any position? If no one wishes to weigh in, if we can have a motion for approval of this amendment.
Member Durrett, I move to approve the amendment to NCCR 6 as stated under agenda item 7B.
That would be 6.085. Do we have a second?
Member Merritt, I second.
Any additional discussion or comment? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Moves us to item number 8, approvals and resolutions.
Good morning, Chair, members of the board. Steve Gilbert, Chief of Administration for the record. Agenda item 8A is an informational item presented as a notice to the board of establishments that have been issued their final license since the last board meeting. We have 2 licenses to note today. Agenda item 8A1 is for Nevada Organic Remedies, LLC. Nevada Organic Remedies applied for an adult use retail store license during the September 2018 application period held by the Department of Taxation. On December 5th, 2018, Nevada Organic Remedies was issued a conditional license RD221 for an adult use retail store facility in the Nye County jurisdiction. On July 7th, 2022, the Cannabis Compliance Board conducted a pre-opening inspection and audit of the retail store facility located at 2370 and 2380 Homestead Road, Pahrump, Nevada. The inspection and audit results revealed the facility was in compliance with the NCCR and NRS. A statement of no deficiency was issued on July 18th, 2022, and as a result, the CCB approved and issued final license to Nevada Organic Remedies for its adult use retail store establishment on August 5th, 2022. Agenda item 8A2 is for Pure Tonic Concentrates, LLC. On December 5th, 2018, Pure Tonic Concentrates RD547 was issued a conditional adult use retail store facility in the Story County jurisdiction. On July 7th, 2022, the Cannabis Compliance Board conducted a pre-opening inspection and audit of the retail store facility at 420 USA Parkway, Sparks, Nevada. The inspection and audit results revealed the facility was in compliance with NCCR and NRS. The statement of no deficiency was issued on July 8th, 2022, and as a result, the CCB approved and issued a final license to Pure Tonic for its adult use retail store establishment on July 19th, 2022. With that, Chair, members of the board, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Any questions as to the licensing of these 2 facilities? If none, we can move our agenda. Hearing none, we will then move to item number 9, draft of Cannabis Compliance Board Language Access Plan for solicitation of public comment pursuant to NRS 232.0081 sub 4. And this is on for discussion only today. Good morning.
Good morning, Chair and members of the board. For the record, I'm Sarah Tajali, Education Information Officer for the CCB. Per SB 318, all state agencies are required to create a language access plan to ensure that limited English proficiency individuals receive meaningful and timely access to government services in their preferred language. The Language Access Plan outlines the CCB's commitment to equity and the agency's responsibility for providing appropriate language access services using internal resources or state-sanctioned resources. After surveying the staff, the preliminary assessment is that interaction with those seeking language accommodations is limited. However, going forward, we'll begin to collect data on preferred language via our agent card survey and document requests for language accommodations to better assess language access need. The plan includes policies and staff training on how to respond to limited English proficiency individuals via phone, writing, or in person, how to seek assistance from internal or state-sanctioned language access resources, how to seek assistance from and report interactions to the language access coordinator, and how to document the mode of communication and preferred language of individuals to better understand the needs of those accessing the CCB services and ensure that equitable language access is available throughout the duration of their interactions with the board. This plan will be updated annually. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have regarding the plan.
Chair Douglas, for the record, I would hope that some of the information you were talking about gathering has already been gathered, not as to cannabis compliance, but as the state agencies in general. I know the court undertook probably 8 or 9 years ago dealing with this as to written documents and public access. They're using hotlines and other things because we have a limited amount of interpreters. And with the internal guidelines of not being able to use family members and other people like that as official interpreters, we have to provide those people who are capable. And you had some limited information about what are the capability of our present staff. So
Yeah, I did receive, when I surveyed the staff, I asked about their language, their proficiency in languages other than English and their comfort with assisting in CCB related services. And we did have a few respondents. There are multiple languages, including Spanish, American Sign Language, Thai, that some of our staff members are able to provide translation or interpretation services. And there is a list of state sanctioned services that we can access if we cannot provide accommodations for individuals internally.
this is a difficult task. I look forward to the work that you're about to do.
Thank you.
Chair, just real quick, I think the intent of the legislation was to, when the questions are done, to open it up for public comment right specifically on this. Just wanted to add that before we move on.
So based upon that, do we have anyone who wishes to make any public comment today as to this issue? Then without further comment, we will move the agenda. We have briefing from Chair and Executive Director. I will just kind of throw out a couple of things today. In light of what is going on with the lounges, with some of our local jurisdictions throughout the state, and other comments about cannabis and the next step, we all need to understand that it's a very delicate relationship between the state and the local entities and kind of co-parenting, if you will, cannabis, that the state gave certain rights to the local entities to regulate in terms of zoning and some other matters. And so they're grappling with those issues. Likewise, with the legislation, we as a board are grappling with some of the things that were approved by the legislature because they were not articulated as clearly as they should have been, at least from my standpoint. And it creates some problems for the industry. I would just advise those who are listening today to be careful in their wish list as they go to the legislature this next session, making sure that you clarify what's on that wish list, how it's to be effectuated, so we don't sit with egg on our face later as we try to adopt it and go forward. That's my comment.
Thank you. And I'll just add briefly, yesterday, the Cannabis Compliance Board released a number of educational materials sticking with the topic of consumption lounges on how to apply. There's a lot of educational videos, checklists, and documents that are going to help all applicants, but in particular, our hopeful and future social equity applicants. It's a little bit unprecedented to go to this great length of detail to provide these materials, but we're very proud of what we're doing here and the transparency that's it's going to allow for. And hopefully we set the standard going forward for that. But what I'd like to put on the record is none of that happens without the incredible work by the CCB team to put those materials together. They've been working incredibly hard since the lounge bill passed. We still have more work to do, but in particular for yesterday and the materials that are online now, just would like to thank all staff's work on that. And that's it for me, Chair.
With that, item number 9, next meeting date proposed is September 27th, 2022. Any board member have anything else that they wish to look at possibly for future agendas? And if not today, they can still call and write and send mail for those items. But moving to item number 13, additional public comment.
For the record, Rachel Lee, Sunflower Compassionate Company. And I thank you for that information, that education information that you guys put on your website. I really appreciate that. I saw all that and I can't wait to get to that. But I wanted to mention a few more things. And I'm pretty sure a lot of the dispensaries are out of here. But I did want to mention to some of the dispensaries, since licensing have taken place, I just wanted to say if none of the dispensaries have done anything for the communities that was truly affected by the war on drugs, and they just came down and they got licenses, and they did for every community that's outside of Nevada except for one that was truly affected, shame on you. Also, I wanted to ask a question in regards to the 3.5 grams of THC that will be allowed for the cannabis consumption lounge. I don't understand how the dispensary could allow 28 grams to leave out of their facility, but 3.5 grams would only stay inside of a consumption lounge. Also, I had a question in regards to a patch. If a consumer came in and they wanted a patch and they wanted to watch a comedy show, they wanted to use a patch, and that THC is in their system, how do we take that THC out of their system before they leave that consumption? There's no way. And the reason why I asked that question is that if we're allowing the customer to consume a product on the facility, they're not able to take in the same type of bag that we're allowing the dispensaries to have their customers take out of edibles, cookies or whatever. They're able to take things out, but we're not able to allow our customers to leave the consumption. As far as my knowledge, we're not able to allow customers to leave the cannabis consumption lounge with a product, but the dispensaries are able to allow their customers to leave with things such as gummies, cookies, and so on. And then also, I wanted to find out if there's any type of conversation in regards to, from the CCB to the actual cultivating companies that will give the consumption lounge licensees some type of percentage off of what we have to pay for. Because if everyone's trading interest in something, something kind of seems up to me, because in my opinion, and it could not be true, possibly could not be true, it's almost like they're attempting to guarantee failure of a consumption lounge. Also remediation. Remediation, of course, everyone's not going to understand that language, but I had to ask myself while I was sitting over there in regards to something being retested that I consume. And the question was, if someone said that, hey, these steaks were tested for some type of microorganisms or some type of bacteria, am I going to tell that person to run that steak back and test it again? And that's all I have. Thank you. And thank you for this meeting.
Note for the record that we can't answer the question that you presented in public comment. If you have questions, you may direct them possibly to staff after the meeting.
Thank you so much.
Good afternoon, Board Chair and Executive Director. I just wanted to thank the CCB as a whole for all of the efforts put forward towards the consumption lounge applications and the information that was released yesterday. I look forward to being successful in the industry. My name is Eric Cannabis on behalf of the Spade LLC, and I just wanted to thank you guys for everything that you've been doing. Thank you.
Other persons wishing to make public comment? Anyone in Carson City wishing public comment?
Does not appear anybody is here for public comment.
That being the case, item number 14, adjournment. We are adjourned.
Thank you.